So kind of talk to me, about some of the reasons why you're running. Why did you decide to get in this race? What was, kind of talk to me a little bit about your platform.
Sure. So, I originally was approached last summer to see if I would consider running for this position. I'd never really planned on running for office before. My wife and I have been involved in state politics for more than 20 years now with groups like the Texas Public Policy Foundation and other organizations really that focus more on the policy side, and felt like that was kind of where our contribution was made. As we got approached and we began to pray through whether or not this was something we were feeling called to do, we honestly couldn't come up with a good enough excuse to say no. You kind of hearken back to the idea that, or the quote that, the only thing it takes for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. And so, if we don't elect good leaders, you can't expect good results. And so we have 4 kids. Our youngest went off to college last year. And so with that, my position here at Discovery Operating as president, I still work with my dad and my 2 brothers, 35 plus years later. Sat down with my business partners and they're all very patriotic and understand the need to have good leaders in Austin. And, as we talk through it, we feel like our company is in a good position for me to step back from that and not hurt its performance. And so here we are.
Okay. And, let's say that, you get the honor, you're elected. What's kind of, one of the big things that you want to focus on? I'm sure you have, a list of things that you want to do, but what's like one of the first things that you want to get started on, once you're in office?
Well, let me start by saying I'm a businessman. My business happens to be the oil and gas business. But, I've been part of a small business for my whole career. And so what I want to do is I want to take good practical business sense to Austin. I think we saw how much of a difference that can make with our last president, President Trump, having good business skills in the White House, and how economically it, made such a difference to our economy. Well, I see the same thing at the state level. We have a serious lack of business-minded people in the legislature, and I believe that we're asking our legislators to do the business of the state on behalf of the people, and so we need people with good practical skills. The other thing that I recognized was the fact that the oil and gas industry is not represented at all in the Texas Senate. So there's not a single state senator currently that has any oil and gas experience, which is, when you look at the fact that the oil and gas industry is more than 25% of the state's whole economy, you would think we ought to have some expertise in the Senate as we address those issues. As far as specific issues, obviously, the border is critical. I had an opportunity, it's been 5 or 6 weeks ago now, to make a trip down to the border and get a DPS briefing on Operation Lone Star. So I'm thankful that the legislature, in its wisdom, allotted, almost $3 billion to address the illegal crossings that's happening right now. Obviously, it's a severe tax not only on our people, because that should be the federal government's responsibility, but also on law enforcement across our state. But the fact remains, we've got to do everything we can to shut down illegal crossings there at the border. I'd say other things that I really believe need to be addressed are property taxes. They've continued to increase for more than 20 years, and we're outpacing our taxpayers' ability to keep up. So something's got to happen there. What I would say is I really believe that innovation is what's going to help us correct a lot of our state's challenges, whether it's education or healthcare or need for infrastructure, water. I believe, and we've seen this, I've been involved obviously in the oil and gas industry that's very heavily, it's heavy on technology, and even in my 35 plus year career, we've seen over and over where technology and advancements in technology have reinvented different components of our industry. I believe that needs to be the case across all the challenges for our state.
Okay, and so, you're running against, 3 other candidates. We've got one who's out of the Big Spring area, and then a couple, I believe, that are out of Amarillo. What separates you from those 3? Like, what sets you apart from them?
Well, I would say, for the most part, my business experience, as I've already talked about. When you look at the other candidates, none of the other 3 have the kind of experience that I have, and that's not only with business skills, but also with management, managing employees, having to make a payroll, working through the cycles of an industry where if you don't pay close attention to all of your expenses, then you don't get to make the next cycle. In addition to that, I would say that, again, I have been working on the policy side now for more than 20 years. So the issues that we're going to face in Austin are things that I have put a lot of thought into, and I believe that my conservative values with that experience are going to help me navigate really all of the intricacies in Austin.
Okay, that sounds good. And, one of the other things I wanted to ask about, it's become a big issue. You talked about the border, that's one of the big things. Another thing that's, popped up here recently has been, this issue of high levels of radioactive waste potentially coming to, the state of Texas. Can you kind of talk to me about kind of where you stand on that?
Sure. My understanding is that where it currently sits, the issue of high-level radioactive waste coming to West Texas has already been decided, and the governor has said that's not going to come to Texas. I believe I think that's the right choice, personally. Barring any new information that shows, I just look from a practical standpoint and know that the federal government spent billions of dollars on a facility it was either Arizona or Utah, before basically their representatives got that project shut down. I'm just thinking if the idea was in order for it to be housed safely, it needs to be inside of a mountain, then we probably don't need to be hosting it out here, whether it's on top of the ground or we're just putting it in a hole. So that's my stance on high-level radioactive waste at this point without more information.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just a couple more questions, I'll let you go. You would, if you're elected, you'd be replacing Senator Kel Seliger. What's one thing that you would like to, do differently than he has, if anything at all? He's been in this position for, several years now. So what's one thing that you'd like to do differently if you're elected?
Well, one of the things, over time, Senator Seliger obviously began to have some maybe personality issues with members of the Senate. And what I'm hoping to do is I'm hoping to unite our whole district, including our business leaders. I really believe that we're missing out if we don't bring our whole district, north and south, east and west, together to speak as one voice in Austin. I had the opportunity last week to take some of our business patriots from the south part of the district and meet with some business leaders in Amarillo in what I hope to be the first step in uniting our district. We're so far off of the I-35 corridor that I think a lot of times we get neglected out here. And when you look at the energy industry and the ag industry, we represent a significant portion of the economics for our whole state. And I think our best chance of people understanding the value of that and why they have to continue to invest dollars out here is if we speak as one voice.
Okay, and is there anything else that you'd like to mention or talk about that we haven't already touched on at this point?
The only thing I'd like to say is right now we're seeing kind of a soft voter turnout, which I'm really surprised. One of the reasons that I've decided to get into this race is because I was concerned about where our nation is headed and know that if we don't take steps to keep Texas conservative, we ultimately look like California in just a number of years. And so I'm a little surprised with everything else that's been going on around the country that we haven't seen a higher voter turnout. And my hope is that we will see that increase and that people are paying attention and will go to the polls and cast their vote because that's their right and their privilege as Americans and as Texans. And it's my hope to win this position so that I can go to Austin to try and keep Texas, Texas.